And we are back. The Black Mamba episode, Kobe Bryant. Episode 24.
Nathan hasn't done this in a while.
No, literally. I was like, I put my microphone in a different position. I feel like I'm about to do a mixtape instead of a podcast.
Yeah, you know when you hold it like from here, you're like
Yeah.
to the F60.
It feels so
And you smell what the rock is cooking. I remember.
Episode 24. We are back. Basically, we're just going to continue on with Emily's monk stories because we left you on a cliffhanger last time we were together.
But also experiences like on journaling and meditation. I think we'll do part 2 on this because I think, like I said, we did leave everyone in a kind of a cliffhanger, especially with Emily's stories, because we did say we could do the whole pod on this, and we were like, you know what? Why don't we do a whole pod on this? So Emily, take it away. Let's go for it. Let's dive deep into. Because you briefly touched on it, but obviously it would be good to kind of go through the whys post, because obviously it's like a transformation effectively, right? So like, when you go through a transformation, you just don't go through fat loss. You want to go through like how was maintenance a year and a bit later, basically. So let's dive deep into it.
Yeah. Oh, that's actually quite interesting. So I did my Vipassana retreat in Blue Mountains, Australia, December 2019. Mm-hmm. Or November, December. It's a 10-day silent retreat where you basically live like a monk and a nun. You meditate for 9 hours every day minimum. You don't speak. There's no phones. There's no books. There's no stimulation. You eat 2 meals a day, and that's it. You wake up at 4 a.m. with a gong. You start meditating at 4:30 with another gong, and then you go to bed. Lights out at 9 p.m. That's it.
So hold on. What happens between the hours of 4:30 in the morning and then till 9 p.m.? Is it just literally on silence and that's it?
Oh, it's silence all the time. When you eat, when you you wash your clothes by hand. Like there's a lot of like you fill your time when you don't meditate with like walking and looking at things. Like it was crazy how you became hyper aware of your surroundings, and you could like stare at leaves on the ground and be so fascinated because you never experienced boredom in the past, where you just got so excited about looking at things moving in nature. Like that's to the point towards the end of it where it was like, wow, I'm so aware of everything and I appreciate everything. And really, I think I don't even know where I'm going to start with this. Like, where do we start? Like, you meditate on hours. You start at 4:30 a.m. You meditate for 2 hours. You get your breakfast. You go back, you meditate. You meditate again. You get your lunch. You meditate again. You have an evening discourse, which is basically the guy who was the creator. I think his name was something Genko or something like that. I can't remember on top of my head, but anyway, so you sit and you watch an hour of him talking, because it's kind of like a spiritual education, the meaning of things, the meaning of life. Like it's a very spiritual thing, and obviously comes from Buddhism. But the way that he speaks is like, you don't have to be, you can be a Muslim, you can be a Christian. It doesn't really matter, because it still applies, because this is like the thought of life. It's not necessarily religion, which I thought was really beautiful. And when I was there at that retreat, it was a Chinese retreat. So we were actually a lot of Chinese people and just a few white people. So they held it in Mandarin and English at the same time. And that's it. And then you meditated one more hour, and then you went to bed.
Cool. Let's go back to like your why, and why did you want to go for this in the very beginning? Like there's a spark in someone, right? Like who says, I want to try this. There's a curiosity behind it. Like what made you curious around this situation? Say, look, I want to go and explore this, and I want to do this for at least 10 days, or what? Maybe it was like a day or so, and then you said, you know what, there's only 10 days. I'm going to go with 10 days. Like, what was that curiosity behind it?
Well, I think I've always been intrigued by meditation, and I never quite got it. You download like Headspace, you download Waking Up, you download all these apps. And for some people it really worked, but it never got to me. And I couldn't, I sat on one sitting and I was like, I can't listen to this guy's voice, or I don't get it. And I think it's just part of who I am. What I've always done is like when I want to try something or learn something, I go to the source kind of thing. You know, when I was younger, I did capoeira. I went to Brazil. When I started doing salsa, I went to Cuba. So I don't know. It's just been something that I've always done in terms of like, if I'm going to do something, I want to learn by the best, or I want to immerse myself in that culture. So I can't remember, but it was someone who, actually, I read a book. It started with me reading a book about a guy who meditated, and it was called The Surrender Experience. I can't remember the guy's name, but it's a pretty cool book, actually. And it was about him getting into meditation and what happened inside of him, and then looking at his life and what happened. I'm not going to talk about the book, but it's a cool book, and that's how it started. And then someone told me about Vipassana. That's it. So it was in the back of my mind at the time I was traveling, and then you have to apply for these things and they go so quickly. Like you have to apply on the day, on the hour they release them, because you won't get a seat until they release the next one. And it has to be literally like you have to apply. So I got lucky and I got the event. Like I got
What's the prerequisite, if you don't mind me asking? Is there like a prerequisite, or there is no prerequisite to this?
There is no prerequisite. No, you apply via their website, and you answer some questions, and that's it. I know that you're not allowed to go there if you have like a mental health issue, like, because a lot of shit will come up. So yeah. So basically you it's kind of like you do a park queue, like, are you fit for doing this kind of experience? And the way why, like, they have a lot of different things. You can go 1 day, 3 day, 10 days, 60 days, 45 days. There's a lot of different ones. But in order for you to learn Vipassana, which is a type of meditation, you have to be there for 10 days your first time. So if I were to go back, I could do a 1 day course. I could do a 3 day, like I could do whatever I want now. But unless like if you actually want to get into Vipassana, you have to be there for 10 days.
Okay.
Because it's like you're learning, say that you don't know how to walk, so you learn how to walk so then you can jog, so then you can sprint. And it's kind of the same, like every day you build on the last day, so that eventually you understand Vipassana, you can really do it properly. So it's the same thing. It's like you start with like the proper basics. The first 3 days are actually not even, it's called Anapana, which is just another way of meditating, which primes you to start Vipassana. So it's like there's a whole, it's like it is a course essentially. Yeah.
So it's a mind transformation, effectively, right? You're going through like a priming phase, you're going through the next phase after that. So talk us through day one. You get there. What does day one really look like for you? You have your phone. I'm guessing your mind is running 100 miles per hour, right? You've got your phone there. I don't think you're working at that point, right? You're just traveling. So you've got your phone, you're kind of in that moment. Are you ready to like completely let go of all of that and think, I'm not gonna have my phone for the next like 9-10 days. I'm gonna be eating this specific foods. Did you like go to, a restaurant day before and you're like, I'm just gonna have whatever I need? It's like prison kind of thing, right? Well, I don't want to call it prison, but it's like, it's one of those situations you're like, okay, I'm gonna eat this, and I'm gonna spend time on social media as much as I can because I know I'm not going to get this for the next like over a week. What was that day? Yeah, this is your last meal basically. So what was that day like? What was day one really like?
So I was working. I wasn't working a lot, but I was working. I've already obviously told all of my clients that I'm going silent for 10 days. You won't hear from me. Like you can't reach me, and don't try. And it's the same, like I had to tell my parents, and obviously I was in Australia, so I had to actually prep people for my silence, because there would have been no way of them knowing, or me knowing, if they died or if I died. Like there wouldn't have been. And I think I was lucky enough because I had just traveled in New Zealand on my own, and I've done that kind of spiritual journey on my own. I was calm, I was around in nature. So I think I didn't go from like a stressed, high-paced job into this, because my mind, even though I started on day one, it was still running. I can only imagine what people would have gone through who have come from like a corporate world, going straight into that, because the contrast is just, it's surreal. So day one, what you do, you like sign some papers, and then you give your phone away, and then you get like bed sheets, and you get like your room, and you have a meal. So the first day you still speak with people. So the day 1 starts on day 2, really. And
Okay.
then you sit there and you actually have this kind of meeting with everyone, and it kind of goes into like you're agreeing to some requisites of being silent, of not killing, of not eating meat, of like you actually agree to all of these things, these like rules of conduct which you agree to do. And I think that itself, like, it felt serious when you were there. It's like, I'm about to do something, and I'm going to do this all out. And I wasn't sure what I was going to expect, if you know what I mean. So yeah, that was day 1. Day 2 was one of the hardest moments in my entire life, because it really was like a pain. You obviously sit in the same position. I'm not like the most flexible person, and then you have to like in the first 3 days when you do this thing called Anapana, you're allowed to move around. So you actually like, you can stretch your back, you can move a bit when you want to, but it was still painful. And then when you start the Vipassana, the point of Vipassana is you do not move at all for an hour. And it's a difficult thing to do, I promise, because you're gonna want to move. So yeah.
What's Anapana, like for the viewers out there as well? Like,
Yeah,
for the
Anapana would be the only thing that you do is that you're focusing your breath on like the triangle around your nose and your mouth, and that is it. And the thing is, it's actually really cool. By the 3rd day, you become so hypersensitive. So for me, everyone has their different experiences, by the way. So, but for me, it was burning. It was like I had like a cold sore, but on my entire mouth, and I didn't have it. But that's the intensity of like my breath. I could just feel fire. That's how like sensitive I became to like the sensations of the air blowing out, and like my little, the little hair, like the mustache, which I don't even have. Like you feel everything. Oh, do I?
had Nathan choking there.
I forgot to shave it beforehand anyway. So that's the point of like the hyper awareness of your own energy and every sensation of your body. So that is like the prep, and that's all you do for 3 days. You just sit and try and focus just on this path and not have a thought. And like, so it was like, for me, it was really painful inside, because I was fighting my own thoughts of going like, but you have to focus, and then you go on a thought and you say you have to focus on it. So it was really tiring. Like, I actually, whenever we didn't do the meditation, I would go and sleep because I was fucked. I was so tired, because all you fighting is like an internal fight all the time. So I actually had to sleep like during the day. I just slept. And yeah, that was Anapana, basically. Learn how to breathe and focus on your breath on a very small area of your body. And then when you move into Vipassana, you start to scan your body and you feel your entire body, like every muscle, skin, like you feel like you're supposed to focus on the senses of having clothes, and then the senses of having gravity, the senses, like you focus on all of it, and you kind of just keep scanning your body. And that's it. That's all you do. You keep scanning your body. And if you couldn't feel an area, you try to like, I don't know, you just try and stay there and focus, and actually, because you can feel, because subconsciously our body picks up on everything, right? We have sensory inputs everywhere. I think it's like 200 million bytes of information every second that you have, but subconsciously it's where we pick it up. We don't pick it up consciously. So it's kind of like going into your subconsciousness and becoming super aware of what you're experiencing. And when you got to that point, like it was like ecstasy, like when you actually got into a flow, like actually like drug-like experiences. I remember my first, like, because I didn't say, but like I was in so much pain, like existential pain for the first 2 days. Like every day was like, or every hour I said, okay, I'm just gonna do 1 more hour, then I'm gonna leave, because you could leave at any point. And I was like, just 1 more hour and then I go. Like I can't, this is so painful. Like, and it's a pain which I can't describe, because it's not just physical. It's like an emotional, spiritual, like just agony. And it was like, so I know, like I had to take on like a Navy SEAL thing and go, right, that's what they do. Focus on the next point, like focus on the next step. And so it became this thing of like having to psych myself up for the next session, because I was so sure that I wasn't going to make it. I'm like, I'm just going to go because this is way too much. But I remember on day 3, I made that kind of conscious decision. I knew that I was going to stay. It was like in that book, like the surrender experience. I said, come what may, I'm just going to stay. And that was it. And that was like, it was a significant moment because I just remember it was a feeling of like, I knew that I was going to last. It was, yeah.
Was that, so early on was the hardest for you and then naturally got easier? Because obviously some people, I've heard stories about like, you know, as it gets towards the middle, it's just really, really difficult. I guess it's always down to what your mindfulness is and or where you're with flow state as well at the same time, right? Like everyone's flow state is very different. So I'm guessing, you know, some may get it in the very beginning and then it just becomes worse progressively. But for you was like day 1, I guess day 1 wasn't as hard, but day 2, day 3 the hardest, and then did it get progressively easier or vice versa?
You know, I thought when I made like when day 3 felt like easy, and let's not say like let's not put like easy as in like this is a breeze. It was still hard, but I knew that I was going to stay. The challenges that you meet later is not the same challenge. So I thought that, oh, now this hard part is past. But 2 days later, I was in agony again, and it was a different kind of agony. And so, yeah, you don't really know what you're going to get. And that the thing with Vipassana, what they teach you is like everything passes. Nothing is like everything's impermanent. That's essentially all they're teaching you. That you just want to focus and you don't want to have any attachment to anything. Like whatever you're feeling, we know that it's going to pass. Your job is just to observe it. And that's it. So like when we went into Vipassana and I had one, like every sitting was super different. But I remember the first one when I had this like overwhelming thing, I was sitting there and I felt like my entire body was on fire. Like, and it like, I wasn't actually sure if I was on fire or not. Like I was so confused about my senses that it was just the craziest thing. And I was sitting there, I was closing my eyes and I thought like, I actually don't know if I'm on fire. And I'm just going to sit with it. And then after a while, of course, it went away. And then when we finished, because we had 2 teachers, a male and a woman, and you could, a male and a female, and you could talk to them. So I actually did speak, like you had like 1 minute at one, like every day you could go up to your teacher and ask them questions. But I just went up there at the end of that session, I just started crying, like, because it was so emotional. And she talks like it's about like emotional release, that all of our emotion also sits inside our body. They're trapped in there. So this is kind of like it felt like the most therapeutic thing that I've done, like this retreat, because I had to allow those things to come up to surface. And when they did, I could let them go. So it's more than just like meditation. And really, like when I think about it, like it is really like so beautiful, and I see why people do it, and I kind of wish I did it, and I would create that structure in my life where I would prioritize it again, because I really know the benefits of it. Like it healed me in so many ways. And I mean, I can share so much. And the thing is, I don't know like what day was what, because they all kind of just, I remember like day 7 was really hard again. And then obviously like, you remember like a few things, but they kind of just all are the same. It's like, and they're so long, the days are so long, yet now in hindsight, it feels like it was nothing. But that was like a lifetime that I spent in there. It was a lifetime. And there was one particular day where and I don't know why, but I faced death. Like death was like in my consciousness all the time, and I was having conversations with like my family members who have died, and there was a lot around like death and what it meant to me. And like, so I mean, it was a crazy experience. Like and I didn't like choose those thoughts to come up, they just came up. And I had like healing conversations with people that I probably wanted to have conversations with, but I couldn't have, so yeah.
That's fascinating. And then what about people around you? So did you see, you mentioned about mental health earlier, right? Like you couldn't go there if you had mental health issues, but what if someone did lie, for example? You could easily lie on these, if it's a PAR-Q form, you can just say, yeah, I got nothing, but you've done this instead. Yeah. Like, did there anyone else around you like really suffer in those 9 days and they had to like leave? Like you may have seen someone day 1 and then day 5, they're like walking out of the monastery and they're like, I'm done from here?
I would say probably a third of the people left.
Wow, that's a high number.
Most people leave within the first couple of days. There was someone who left on like day 7 or 8, which I thought was crazy. Like, you're almost at the finish line and I don't know. But the funny thing is, right, because you don't know anyone. You don't speak with anyone, and everyone has a stern face. Because why you don't laugh just for yourself? You, like, I don't know, and you kind of emerged in this thing of like being calm and trying to like preserve yourself and just be kind of like just accepting of whatever. So you obviously could look at other people, but they wouldn't show any emotion. And I thought I was alone. I thought everyone is like happy or it's going easy for them. And I was like suffering. And I thought, this is crazy. And there was one girl I remember, she was always having a little bit of a smile on her face, like a little one. And she would like look at butterflies and she would be like, just in her own little world. And I thought, wow, she's having a really good time. And then I spoke to her afterwards and she was just having the worst. So like it was incredible because you also like, I felt like I knew all of these women. We were 50 women living together, yet I had a story made up of all of them. Sometimes I would sit next to a woman, like a little Chinese lady, when we ate, and we just ate, and obviously we don't talk, but it still feels like you, because energetically you're connected and you feel it.
And the same mission, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and the most beautiful thing, on the very last day, they go into another form of meditation. It's more like sending out love. Like it's a love meditation where you're actually sending out that energy to other people. And that room was just like, it was so beautiful. And that's purely energy. Like it was like, because you sit there and you close your eyes, you don't feel anything, but you feel so much. Yeah, it was absolutely incredible.
Big question for you, right? So you mentioned, you're talking to people like who have died and stuff, right? Like you go into that kind of the actual flow state. Now, let's say if you started laughing and stuff because you're in that kind of, you're having a conversation with them and then there was some jokes coming through. What if you started laughing? Would they be like, is this person okay? What's going on here? Because you're not allowed to like kind of, I'm guessing, laugh or even talk, right? But let's say you naturally just started having a conversation because you're like in that moment. What would happen then? Like, would they kick you out or would they just say to you, oh, what's going on here?
No, they wouldn't kick you out. They would obviously tell you to be silent and respect the code, because it's all about the code. There's nothing really to do else. We had, because I actually shared like a room. We had like your own little pod, but I shared room with like, I think we were 10 people in that room. And there was one girl, she actually spoke in her sleep every night. So obviously she like missed, she didn't get the code. But yeah, no, they wouldn't kick you out. Like that's not the purpose of that thing. It's so much more than just do this or get out. Like that's not the point of, like, it's all about compassion. Like it's from a genuine place. And of course you want to respect the code of conduct. Like you had to wear things, like you had to wear long sleeve stuff, and like there's things that you have to respect.
Was it all white clothes and stuff?
No, as long as they were like not showing arms, obviously like cleavage and like, I don't know, like obviously you just like you live like a nun. Essentially you sign up to live like a nun or a monk for 11 days. And yeah, that was
That's fascinating to me. And then let's go post now, because I think that's quite important as well. Obviously a lot of people, let's say if they want to embark in this and kind of want to understand post, I don't know if it has major effects, but I'm guessing it has had a profound effect on your life. Post. I'm also thinking from a transformation viewpoint, do you think it's helped you a lot? Like, let's say when you're going for photo shoots, you want to get shredded. Like, do you go back in time and think, I'm in this moment here. That was really hard. I did it. This one's just another thing, but I can easily do it. Like, is there a link to it, or there isn't like a link for you?
I think the work you do inside is by far greater and harder than you do on the outside. And you can pull on, I think when you've done an internal work like this, you can pull on a lot of strengths. But for me, it was, they don't really go hand in hand. I think you can utilize, but more so the compassion side of it. Like the thing that I took away is way more compassion for myself, for other people, how I want to be in this world, what I value and treasure. Like I live way more congruently, I think, post. I think I feel like I've always been kind of compassionate, but it took me to a whole different level of how I try to understand other people and not just judge first thing, and be more curious about like what could be another alternative to how not just my reality is, right? So it definitely sparked a lot of curiosity in me to understand things and not like just be open to understand that I don't know fuck all, to be honest. So yeah, as I said, like in the last podcast, like it was a significant event because there is an Emily before Vipassana, there was an Emily post Vipassana. It really is. And I feel like a part of me, and this is going to sound really dramatic, but a part of me had to die in there so that I could become something else. And I think maybe that day of death was like that, you know, and to think about death in a different way. And maybe that was it, you know.
They
So
always
say again.
they always say about like ayahuasca trips and stuff like that you can die an ego death quite well.
Yeah.
It's very, very frequent that people do that. It could be very, very similar. I think some of it may come down to, and this is what I would imagine anyway, but I don't know for her, but is that, you know, when you let emotions sit and then you let them go and then they come and sit and then you realize that was what you were holding on to, a lot of it, then it changes your perception on that element of what that ego was built on. The ego was probably built on that emotional foundation of you reacting to emotions that needed to just be let be. And then by letting them be, you then allow that to kind of just die and go because you're not feeding it anymore. You're basically suffocating the ego. You're basically not feeding it anything by just literally observing and acknowledging, that having a conversation in your mind and say, okay, look, this is coming, this is going, that's fine. And then when you let that go, then those energies can pass.
Yeah. What was I gonna say here?
In terms of like let's say in the lead up, so last day, let's go last day now. Did you know it was the last day? You probably did, or you probably didn't. And then what was your plans after that, right? Because it's a weird feeling, right? Do they support you after? Do they say, okay, this is how you can still carry on with meditation? How does it all work? Because obviously this is where I'm very fascinated by it, because I'm like, it's like the post transformation, right? It's like doing the transformation, and then after that, it's like what would happen for you. So let's discuss it, and then where you are right now in terms of your meditation journey. I think that's quite important as well.
Absolutely. So there's an app. I have an app that's like I could actually listen back to the discourses. I could like go through the whole experience on my own again if I wanted to. There's a lot of material that you can go to. There's a lot of meditations that you can listen to. So there's definitely like a community that is like created for this, like for the graduates of Vipassana, like first course. I was going to do a second 3-day thing just before I left Australia, but then no.
There was fires.
Yeah, the bushfires got really, well, actually there were bushfires when I was there, and they actually said, hey, look, like we're in the bush, but we do our best to keep you safe, kind of thing. And there was huge bushfires that year, like craziest ones. But no, they do them everywhere in the world, right? And you can sign up to them, but due to Corona, nothing is open. So like a lot of things just can't happen. You can of course do like online stuff because they do have like online. In my world, it's just not the same. But that's just my excuse for not doing it, essentially. My meditation now, how it is now for me, I think what I realized though, and another thing that you go through, they like, I think towards the end of those 10 days, they put it into your head that you will be constantly meditating. So when you walk, you meditate. When you eat, you'll be meditating, and you try and practice that. So that's the thing that I've realized, that meditation is not just sitting down, closing your eyes and breathing. It's in everything that you do if you make it so. And this is why I always say, like, for me, training is my meditation, because it's the moment when I'm so connected. And for me, it's the most spiritual thing, training. And I think you guys probably agree, like it's a spiritual thing. to go to the gym and actually work on yourself. And so I don't like to box things in, even though Vipassana might have a set of rules or a thought, a conduct of how you should be doing it, which might not apply in the gym because, but I just genuinely think that just because I'm not doing it the Vipassana way, I'm not meditating, I still have the benefits of it because I learned it and learned what it meant. And it's like it went into my cells and I got it. And that's what I came for and that's what I got. And, yes, I mean, sitting down meditating is fantastic. I just still think that I am, just not in those ways.
Yeah, I get you. How did the day after feel? Like, let's say the day you're leaving, when you got your phone, how did that moment feel for you? Like, I know you mentioned in the previous pod, like you felt like, the phone was really heavy. Did it feel like it was again running 100 miles per hour, or did you just be like, I need to calm, I don't need to open my phone up. I don't need to switch anything on. I just need to be in the Zen state. Because I'm very fascinated by that as well. Because I can imagine like most of the people there would have been like phone on and then back to kind of maybe usual. But I also feel like it's a spiritual journey, so you're already in a completely different mind state in those 9 days, right? So like, how did that day feel like?
Actually, I just want to go back to that because I obviously spoke to some people afterwards and their experience was not the same as mine. No one was the same, right? Some people really did not feel the spiritual side kick in and like they didn't have sensations. So for some people, it didn't become that thing that it became for me. And I don't know why. I think I'm by nature very sensitive, like to energy, to emotions, like I'm sensitive. But I just remember that third day when I surrendered, and I don't know if people surrendered to experience and really like immersed themselves, really tried, because you don't just sit there, close your eyes and breathe. It's like you're trying to do what they're asking you to do, which is very demanding. And maybe some people didn't do that. Like obviously you could hear people would move around or like people would leave the room. Like you could come and go as you wanted to. So as in anything in life, you get what you put in. And I was there to take something away, and I really got something. And I think some people didn't, or maybe they didn't know what they were looking for when they were there. I had a pretty traumatic year. So for me, I was looking for healing. I was looking for meaning. I was looking for something, right? And I was very open to whatever that would be. So that became my journey. So, everyone didn't have the same experience.
I can imagine that a lot of people will go through that process of getting there and probably finding that first 1 to 3 days really, really tough. And that's where you see probably the highest amount of drop-offs, is because from what I'm imagining is that prep or that prime at that beginning before Vipassana was the stabilizer, is to kind of get everyone on the same level, like a washing of the plate, really, of like this is where we start from zero. And then we work from there. I think once you probably even sit there, even in that self, that's probably enough for a lot of people to be like, holy fuck. Like, my brain is like, you stop for a moment, your brain's going a million miles an hour. You're not able to go and pick up food or go and pick up whatever you do to kind of pacify it. That could be quite emotionally frightening for a lot of people. I think obviously you'd done a lot of work on yourself before to kind of know that potentially that was about to come up, and that was there. But then that next layer is probably what you were after, whereas people might have gone and was like, shit, I've got what I came for. I've got this awareness that my brain is a million miles an hour, but we'll leave before you finish, or even get to the point of quiet.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
But it's also like when people, they may have got told by some friends, oh yeah, you should go and do this, right? So naturally they didn't always want it. It's like you didn't go searching for it. Like Emily went searching for it.
Yeah.
So it's a completely different experience, right? It's what we said about books, what we said about journaling, meditation. Well, you have to sometimes go search for it in order to get it. Whereas if you've been told by a friend, I think this will be really great for you because you've had a bad year, whatever. It's like it's never the same, because you're just like, yeah, let me go for it, and then you realize your mind's still running 1,000 miles per hour, and you're not secure in whatever's happening, and you're just like, I'm out.
Yeah, they didn't say to them, oh yeah, by the way, on day number 7, I felt my breath burning, or like my there was icicles coming out of my arsehole, or whatever else was going on for other people. but they don't tell you those stories, right? They tell you that how they feel on the last day when they come back into out of captivity, or they do when the brain quietens down. But the hardships, no one's going to talk about those unless you're really comfortable to be able to do so.
You know, they were so beautiful. There was one woman, she came there and her child had died, and she came there to reconciliate with the fact that she would never meet this person again. So there was listening to stories afterwards was really powerful, because everyone just came there for their own reasons, right? And yeah. But to tell you about the last day, so we started speaking and we had a couple of meditations, and this is the thing as well, we actually spoke just before lunch, we got to speak again, and then we had some more meditations, and we actually left the next day. And first of all, it was so hard to get back into meditation after you started speaking. It was crazy, the difference. If it would have taken me towards the end maybe 5 minutes, it took me probably 25 minutes to even get into that kind of flow state. Yeah, I mean, when they gave the phone back, it was really this heavy brick that I could feel radiate things from. It didn't interest me at all. I like the messages, I knew that they were going to be there, but part of me was like, I want to keep this feeling. But I kept Zen for quite some time, actually. And I think you can still keep Zen, like even to this day. And like if you actually focus, it's all about presence, right? So as soon as you stop being present, just things start running. Your thoughts run, everything runs. So yeah, but it was an interesting thing because it was a long journey back into Sydney, and I was just sitting there on the train, and there was a lot of people. Like I didn't actually want to speak, even when we got to break the silence. I was the last one to kind of like engage in conversation. It was really beautiful to listen to the women laugh and tell their stories, and I really enjoyed that. But for me to like actually use my vocal cords, it felt really strange. Yeah, it was, and it was funny, like me and this other Chinese lady, she came up, she's like, is it lunch yet? And we both just started laughing. Like it was just like, it wasn't even funny, but she just like because it just felt cheeky to be speaking again. And again, like we felt like we known each other, but I didn't know her, and then all of a sudden we were speaking. Like it was funny.
I'm guessing you didn't even know names, right?
No, nothing.
That's crazy. That's the craziest part, right? Like you don't even know each other's names, and you're like, I think I know you.
Yeah, but I mean, you make up story like, oh, you have a husband, 2 kids. Oh, you come, you just have these stories about people. Oh, I don't really like you, and you start project judgments, or like it's crazy what your mind starts doing. And again, that's also the journey of like how you just trying to like let go of what your story would be about other people. So it was a really good learning in general. Like I took away a lot of I don't know if everyone took these kind of things away, but as I said, like I'm an introspect by nature, and I like to like really take as much from life and what I experience and try and learn something. And I learned so much. And as I said, like it was a significant event in my life, and I recommend people doing it, but you should be doing it because you want to do it, because you're curious to understand that there's so much more than you understand today. Right.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And do like right now, obviously we've got the rise of apps, social media, from a viewpoint of like meditation. It's a lot more, it's more popular than it was maybe 3 years ago. I don't remember a lot of people talking about it, apart from like you may have had YouTube videos on it. But is there any apps that you recommend someone, like, clients who listen to this right now who are thinking of getting into meditation? Even me personally, I've heard of Headspace and Calm, for example, but is there any other ones that you'd recommend? You're thinking, this is actually really, really good?
I think the one that resonated with me the most was Waking Up with Sam Harris. I think that he also takes people a little bit on a journey of like building you up and explaining things. So I actually really like his, I don't use it myself because I like to think that if I just sat down to meditate, I would actually know how to do it. But for me personally, because I did like look for apps, but it just never felt like the right thing. For me personally, Sam Harris, Waking Up.
Cool. And where can you find that? Just Apple Store and
yeah.
Play Store,
and I think, I don't know if it's still on Netflix, but he had a series on Netflix that talked about meditation as well. So I'm not sure it's still on there, but worth looking into if you like want to learn about meditation as well. So
that sounds fascinating. I think a lot of clients will be the last two episodes have been kind of very, very deep. And I think clients will definitely kind of search into whether it's journaling, whether it's meditation. And after obviously hearing Emily's story as well, I think it's definitely fascinating. Any final words from you, Nate?
No, that's it's great, and I think there's a lot of very similar journeys that you can go on in very different areas. Not even just meditation and journaling. You take out the UK and you go and look over the globe, and you'll find that there's so many variations of this type of thing for every kind of facet that we do, whether it is silence, meditation, mindfulness, exercise, all of these variations that can take you from one end of the spectrum, which we see as normal, to the other end, which is completely different kettle of fish. And by doing something of this sort, you almost like do balance out and bring back to some level of like, it's a different, you feel the perspective changes massively. And I feel like, and I know me and Emma spoke about this a lot, but when you get that perception change by traveling or being in different areas of the world and different cultures, you're able to have a bit of a different understanding and bring something different to the quote unquote rat race of the UK. If you haven't gone and done that.
Yeah, 100%. It's fascinating as well, right? Like you mentioned traveling, that traveling does have an experience where you kind of go deeper into yourself. You kind of find out more about yourself because you start appreciating everything around you. Mm-hmm. Like you did, like obviously 50 odd countries, I think, in 2019, and you went from like, you know, let's say the classiest hotels to hostels where you're like, oh, this is completely different. But you kind of understood people's stories. You met people. We mentioned fitness as a spiritual journey in itself, right? We've got clients who, this is the fitness podcast after all, we've got clients who are, you know, trying to transform themselves, which is effectively a spiritual journey physically. But also they go through it mentally. So it's quite powerful in its essence anyway. But yeah, really appreciate you guys listening to this. Hope you enjoyed the episode. Go on, Nate.
And this is our first week of that. There will be 2 episodes coming. We did mention on our stories that we've been doing some guest interviews. So from now on, Mondays will be the guest interviews, Monday 6 a.m. or wherever it gets uploaded, and then on a Thursday you'll have the OG squad forever. We will be here without a doubt. But then Mondays is basically we're just going to take a little bit of a detour into interviewing guests individually. We feel like the power of us 3 is that we are diverse in nature. In terms of our units and our circles that we have. So we're going to try and diversify and bring you new opportunities, different perspectives, like we were just speaking about just a minute ago, and then bring it all back to whatever we deem as, you know, what is fitness to you. And then that will all like encompass in your high performance culture. You've got artists coming on, we've got coaches coming on, we've got bloody sports managers coming on, like various different things. So it's all in that relative nature of seeing, okay, how this fitness thing or this health and fitness thing spreads inch deep, mile wide.
Yeah, perfect. So yeah, look forward to those episodes. We're kind of branching out, which I think is going to be good fun. Share them on your stories, share them on, you know, to your friends and family as well, because I do think it's going to be quite valuable for a lot of you guys. So yeah, have a wonderful April. Next we're going to talk about gyms potentially. Obviously, it's going to be a week out till the gyms open up. So exciting stuff there. And yeah, enjoy the sunshine, everyone.